Okay, good morning everyone. I hope you guys are happy to be here today at Afems, because we are certainly very happy to see you. And so on behalf of the Urban Connections in African Popular Imaginaries Research Group, on behalf of the Art on Our Mind Research Group, the Department of Fine Art, the Wits School of the Arts, and Wits University, we warmly welcome all of you. It is wonderful to see you and to have you in our space. For those of you who are returning to Afems, hi. We're really happy to see you and to have you back because you're part of an ongoing community. To first-timers, aren't you in for a treat? For those of you who are not familiar with Afems, Afems is a safe space for all kinds of African feminist dialogues of the incredibly critical and the incredibly witty and the incredibly funny kind. But we do encourage rigorous dialogue in these spaces. Some of you are not going to make it till Saturday, to our final thanks. And so there are just a few people I want to thank up front, and these are most importantly our funders, because even to get here till this morning requires the generosity of quite a few people. First and foremost, we want to thank Rosemary J. Jolly from Penn State University, who donated $10,000 to us last year. She visited Afems and she made a promise to support us this year because she knew we were struggling for funds, and she came through on that promise. And those, and those $10,000 are basically half our funding for this year. So a huge thank you to Rosemary, and we'll send her a video at the end of the conference. To Ukapi, to Linda and the Ukapi team, who are an incredibly important part of this. To the NRF, to Tuka, and Wits University, who co-fund the Art on Our Mind project. To Wits School of the Arts, to the School of Language and Literature Studies, the Arts Research Africa grant, somebody we considered very close to our heart, Noluxolo Mhlapo from Rhodes University. Yeah, give it up for Noluxolo. Who provided monies cut with the Office of the VC as well at Rhodes University to actually bring up a taxi full of Rhodes University students. And for that we are very grateful, because even traveling from these areas is very difficult. So thank you very much. So we have two sets of teams here who will be here to assist you. The Art on Our Mind team and the Ukapi team. You may have already encountered them. Anything that you want, please grab onto them and ask them for assistance. They're more than willing to assist you. So we will be in 3 different venues. The Humanities Graduate Center, which is where all our keynotes will happen over the next 3 days. The SH6, which is just one venue, which is the Solomon Mahlangu House. That's not very far away from here. You can follow the signage there. If you get lost again, grab one of our team members. Don't feel shy. There's also the Apollonia Lecture Venue, which is located in the Wits School of the Arts, which is a little bit down the hill. It's not really a hill. I don't know why my students call it a hill. It isn't. It's just a little pathway that goes down. So those will be the 3 venues. The SH6 we're only using for today for the 3rd panel, but for the next 2 days it's the Humanities Graduate Center and the Apollonia Lecture Venue. And then we have a talk that's happening in the Wits Downstairs Theatre, which you will pass on your way to the Wits School of the Arts. And then the 2 dinners today and tomorrow are being held at the Point of Order, which is across the road on Jan Smuts at the Point of Order Gallery, which is on the ground floor of Noswell Hall. But if we can maybe collect at a certain point in the afternoon, we can just take everyone over. Okay? So that's in terms of venues. In terms of food, you have all been given those little tickets, okay, if you registered. So anybody we tick the knowledge is free. We always believe that knowledge should be free. And so if we have anyone who's come in and they haven't been able to register and they want to attend the sessions, they are more than welcome to do so. However, teas, lunches, and the last dinner are for paid participants only, okay? For those of you who did not register for the final dinner, I'm afraid there's no space left, so please make sure that you present your tickets at each of those times. I'm sorry we have to do these kinds of ticketing systems. It's not very nice, it's not very feminist, and it's certainly not very African. And until we can find a better funding system that allows us to be generous in the ways in which we have grown up to be generous, unfortunately, we're forced into these horrible capitalist ways. To anybody who's Muslim and needs to eat halal food, just a note that all the meat with all of our caterers is halal. However, that doesn't necessarily mean it's been prepared in a halal kitchen. So just for taking note. There's always vegetarian options, and there's a vegan option. Please leave the vegan stuff for the poor vegans. Okay. Wi-Fi password is up. Teas will be served at 2 venues. Tea will be served here at the Humanities Graduate Center, and tea will be served at the Apollonia lecture venue as well. We have a very jam-packed program. As you know, as you can see, everybody wants their time in the sun. Please give them that time in the sun by sticking to your allocated 20 minutes. Okay? We know everything you have to say is super important, and your whole PhD is important, and your whole MA is important, and your whole career is important. Please give the other person their 20 minutes. Our chairs is a fancy word for timekeeper. Timekeepers, please be punctual, really take the microphone away if you need to after 20 minutes. We hope not to do that. And then after that, there's short Q&As. Okay, so keep the Q&As short. For us, it's quite important that people present. If you want to sneak in time in the teas and into the lunches, that's your own business. It's between you and your stomach. All right. In terms of Wi-Fi, I think the Wi-Fi password has been put up in all the venues. Toilets in this facility are located down the corridor. If there's anybody who needs to use gender-neutral facilities, you can find that in the concourse area of Solomon Mashlango House. We are videoing and audioing and photographing every single session. On your registration form, you sign consent for that. And we make all of these available post-conference on the Afems website, and that is because we feel that, again, getting the knowledge out there and creating an archive of feminist discourse is important. The exception to this is if you feel that what you're saying is controversial and you don't want it in the public domain, you want it to remain in the social contract of the space. If so, let me know, and I will obliterate your presentation. Okay. In terms of, lastly, this is an opportunity for social networking, to getting to know each other, and a wonderful community here at Wits and beyond. And we have people coming from as far as the US, the UK, and other parts of the continent. We are so glad to have you here. One of the visions of Afems is that one day we can have an Afems that is in French, that is in Arabic, that is in Swahili, and we can create the translations for those things so that we can actually be able to talk to more of our sisters from across the space. So, use the opportunity to network. And lastly, please enjoy as much of the program as you can. And it's jam-packed, as I said. But for Afems, what makes it quite a special conference is that creativity is essential to all that we do. And we know that creativity is essential to all of our lives. And so please enjoy those activities and support the artists in what they've put on for you and for the African Feminisms conference. And so on behalf of Linda, Dr. Linda Spencer, on behalf of Dr. D. Marco, Professor Dina Ligaga, Fuad Asfo, and myself, who are the coordinating, Afems coordinating committee, we once again welcome you, enjoy your stay, and if there's anything that we can do to make this a much more pleasant experience, let us know. Thanks.
Good morning. Welcome to Afems. I don't want to say welcome to Wits. I feel like I'm welcoming someone in a house that's not mine. But it's good to be back at my alma mater. Brings all sorts of memories. I was saying to my Ukapi squad yesterday, my Yahoo address was opened up in this space, which I still have today. Welcome to Afems. This is the third Afems, as Charlene has told you. And mine is very short. It's to welcome Patricia McFadden for those die-hard fans of Afems like Anita, Dina, who are the people, Joy. Those of you who have been attending, who follow us all over our groupies, you'll know that last year when Habiba Badaroun gave her keynote address, one of the things that she spoke about was Patricia McFadden and Patricia McFadden's eco-feminist way of living and being. And so this year, when at the end of the year, we thought, who can we ask to be part of Afems, one of our keynote speakers? And it was quite easy. It was Patricia McFadden. I only just met Patricia McFadden physically this morning, a few minutes ago, but I am sure if I ask you to put up your hands, how many have met her theoretically? A lot of you will put your hands up. So a lot of us know Patricia McFadden's work. We use Patricia McFadden's work. So today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce her to come and speak to us in these very difficult times. And I hope she has some kind of words that will make us understand the times that we're going through. Because of the way in which the time is, and we don't need, Wits is all over the place, it's going to take us long to get to where we were going to go. I'll give Patricia about 35 minutes. There won't be any time, there will be maybe one question, but it will give us time to just sit and reflect, marinate in whatever it is she's telling us. And she's going to be here for all 4 days, so you can talk to her and ask her questions. But we just want to keep in time, and I don't want to cut short what she has to say to us. I don't know when we'll ever have the opportunity to listen to her. So please, will you join me in welcoming Patricia to be our first keynote.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you all for embracing me. And it's just beautiful. I mean, how many times in a year do we meet this way and generate this amazing energy that enables us to continue to be the women that we want to be, that we are becoming. And so this for me is really a very special moment. I live on a mountain, an ancient mountain. I wonder if I put my stuff here, if it's going to have some reaction. I see LG, it's a corporate, isn't it? They usually react to feminism. It's a screen what? I can put it on, right? No. I'm trying to navigate the microphone. So I live on a mountain, a very old mountain, in a monarchical dictatorship called Eswatini, and I fly under the radar. It's very rare for me to meet feminists in this really viciously despotic space. And so I talk with Patricia all the time. She's my companion, and we grow each other, and we are grateful for being located within a space of nature that nurtures me, us. I'm doing that because I use distancing from my subjectivity so that I can grow myself. And so to be here with you as part of this amazing moment is truly a gift, and I thank you. When I was planning this conversation, I was going to speak to the ways in which Fanon and Gramsci are providing me with new insights into the critique of neocolonialism and the profoundly uncaring elites that occupy the stage on our continent and everywhere. And also the ways in which Gramsci's notion of hegemony has me thinking about how feminism as a contemporary politics, as a contemporary thinking and possibility can engage with the notion of hegemony so that we establish a feminist hegemony as the discursive site where we recraft our imaginaries and the ways in which we want to be as future humans who live on this continent. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get there. So I'm just kind of indicating what I had hoped for, because truly all of us were brought back into these deeply visceral moments of our lives as women by the loss of our sister at UCT. And her leaving, no matter how it happened, we know how it happened. Her leaving, for me, is a clarion call. It consolidates a moment that we've been reaching towards for a very long time. And it's a moment of shift. It's a moment of reckoning with ourselves and with the challenges that we face as female humans who live in societies that hate us. And we have to come face to face with that hatred. We have to understand what misogyny means. And we have to go beyond this rather trendy expression of using femicide as though it's, femicide. And the ways in which our language and the threats and the risks and the hazards and the life-taking behavior becomes everyday parlance in the news, in the mouths of bureaucrats who don't give two Fs about who we are, what happens to us. And it's into this crucible, the crucible of this moment that I want to position myself and to insist that we have to be angry, brave, and radical. And those three elements are necessary for us to make the change. So I'm going to read. When I first heard the news that a young woman had gone missing from UCT, it's so blasé. It sounded like the familiar, dispassionate reading of what has become everyday news. The disposability of a female human in a society whose most notorious characteristic has become the misogynistic predation of males upon the bodies and lives of women and female children. For several years now, I've leaned back at such moments and focused on managing the rage that wells up inside my chest while I wrestle with the reality that femicide is a blatant declaration of the patriarchal war against female humans, and that it is very real. It has been real ever since the moment that we were defined and treated as the first form of private property, owned by males everywhere across the planet, in varying systems of patriarchal appropriation, exploitation, and repression. These systems and practices breed a sense of contempt and hatred for females that is encapsulated in the feminist term misogyny. Men have stalked and killed females since the dawn of male-invented time. It is as basic as that, and we have to acknowledge it for what it is: patriarchal supremacy, which is the foundational premise of the war that men have waged on women since this profoundly destructive moment of human rupture. A contradiction in our existence, in the trajectory of human existence on this planet, is that at the moment of human genius, we also invented the most fundamental, the most profound rupture of who we are as humans. More than half of us became property, became things, to be bought and sold through cultural practices that mask the viciousness and the brutality of the relationships that women have existed in with men ever since that moment. The genius of moving from the dependency on nature and the frailties and vagaries of not knowing when nature would provide us with sustenance, to becoming these humans who can predict the weather, who can produce surplus. And that genius, unfortunately, becomes the foundation stone for the malice and the ruthlessness and the plunder of other humans, of the creativity and the bodies of other humans. So that, for me, is the crucial acknowledgement that we have to make. And Nene's leaving us provides us with this moment of courage. We have to find the courage. We arrive with it. It's the most beautiful part of us. It makes up the elements that shape and craft us as humans on this planet. Okay? And we have to accept that this is the imperative. We can't negotiate it anymore. We cannot. That time is over. Everything else is theater. Everything else beyond this crucial acknowledgement, everything else is theater. The invention of institutions and structures, systems and practices, conventions and laws, languages and forms of representation that make claim to fairness and justice, inclusiveness and collective belonging are all props for a deeply entrenched infrastructure of power, privilege, and impunity that reproduces itself structurally through key institutions like the law, which does not accept that women are persons in the fullest sense of the term. We all know that. We have to start calling them on it, instead of trying to navigate our ways into those dark, musky corridors of the law. Such a backward, vicious space in our society. And yet we keep on saying, well, the male judge is going to be fair. When we know he rapes the woman he lives with and he commits incest. Come on. And yet, we have learned to placate them, to negotiate with them as though we have any power in their own terrains. We have to invent our own power, find it in ourselves, craft it, mobilize it, and respond effectively. Otherwise, they will keep on calling our deaths crimes of passion, asking us, what did you do to provoke him? Why were you dressed that way? After all, you're just a whore. And we take it, we swallow it, and it kills us. We carry those stones, those boulders that they throw at us every day in the buses, in the so-called courts, in the so-called families. All right? So we have to go to that place in ourselves where our courage is waiting for us. And we have to expose the theater for what it is. Otherwise, we cannot move beyond this moment, this place of hell. This power, this privilege, this impunity reproduces itself through economic and property relations and exchanges, which consider women's ideas and labor as an extension of male private property, through language and media representations that reproduce the submissiveness and subordinate status of females as normal and given, through social and cultural practices and conventions that continue to insist that a female can only exist as the extension of a male, and through notions and practices of intimacy, sexuality, and reproduction that emphasize the presumption that women's bodies and lives exist for the pleasure and reproduction of maleness. When men fought wars in order to consolidate territories and translate oppressive notions of the state into systems of privilege through which to exercise power and hoard the material resources of nature, they captured women as booty. War rewards for their so-called bravery as the most brutal of males. Most of the narratives around state formation center on these practices of brutality and bloodshed. They are lionized as history to be fed to our children in the gendering of who becomes male and who becomes the submissive. Conquering and owning. Males have engaged in this across the societies of the planet. This has been implicitly translated into and onto the bodies and lives of females as property. This harsh reality of impunitous behavior has become encoded as the DNA of masculinity and maleness in all human societies. Therefore, when we speak of toxic masculinity, we create an artificial distinction between the so-called abnormal male and the supposedly normal male, as though heterosexual masculinity is fundamentally unproblematical. This is a serious conceptual slippage that has become commonplace amongst feminists, a dangerous distinction that allows normative heteromasculinity to continue functioning as the basis for patriarchal male identity. Patriarchal masculinity is toxic, noxious, and dangerous to women. Full stop. And it must be treated as such by feminists, regardless of whether those who wear and practice their identity claim otherwise. Because otherwise, it's little wonder that we feel confused and confounded by the raging levels of femicide, harassment, verbal and physical abuse, and all the other expressions of misogyny that we confront every single day of our lives. I just heard yesterday that this man hanged 4 children. They do it with impunity. You know, it sounds irrational, but actually it isn't. It's the norm. And if we give them the exit by interpreting their behavior as, all the other words that they use, you hear them on the news every day. What we do is we become locked into cul-de-sacs, into places where we cannot think beyond the terror and the fear. Each time I've made this analysis of the core of patriarchal supremacy and impunity and insisted that unless we find the courage and the anger to accept and confront this fact, we will not be able to craft the alternative to patriarchy. My colleagues and even feminist sisters balk at the very idea that the issue is this fundamental. They accuse me of man-hating, that women are not passive, as though I should speak in the same moment my tongue forked, that I must speak, because the insistence that we have to keep on saying that we have resisted, we know that we've resisted. But that insistence takes away from the emphasis that we know that we have fought from the moment when we were excluded, when our freedoms became unfreedoms. We know it. But the insistence that, well, but you are representing women as passive, is a distraction from the emphasis that we need to put in terms of understanding the patriarchy in its barest bones. You know, and people, well, okay, women, my sisters, often will say that, you know, it sounds like man-hating, Patricia. And of course it destabilizes you, isn't it, when somebody says that? Oh, she hates men. You know? So what? You know? But immediately you're expected to navigate your heterosexuality. Yes. You must excuse it. You must say, no, I don't hate men. I'm a compulsory heterosexual. I did that for a long time. And then when you say compulsory heterosexual, they're like, what? But heterosexuality is normal. No, dear. It's actually learned. And it's forcefully learned. I mean, you are taught to hate yourself so that you never own yourself, you never experience self-love, because if you do, no man is going to want you. Okay? So, this distraction, this sabotage, by calling us man-haters, by saying that we've never really met Mr. Right, you know, but it's very serious. It's very serious. And you know what? Feminist work is very serious. It's the most serious work that we can do. Because we are punished. The more radical you are, the more the punishment, and the swifter the punishment, the more the exclusion. I would love to be in an academy where my mind is grown and nurtured by the ideas and the agencies and the energies of my sisters. But there's literally no academy on this continent that would invite me. Because I'm radical. And I ain't playing, baby. I am serious. I've been serious about this shit since I was 16 years old. And a man beat me because I told him futek when he was going. I said futek. And 2 days later he came. He leapt over the park and he beat me. He beat me. I was so terrified. The girls, it was a boarding school, the girls ran helter-skelter. And I had my back against the wall and he beat me. I don't even know what his name is, but I had told him to go to hell. And he was going to teach me a lesson, that you don't say that to a man. And that anger that I felt that day, that indignation and that rage has been the fire behind my feminism. And I promised myself I would never let it go. That I would always stoke the fire of my intellectual ability to fight the patriarchy and to live a life of freedom for myself. And people say, yeah, but you know, they're not all like that. Well, just give them a chance. I'm serious. Because most of us, we swallow it on their behalf. That's why they don't have to do the political work of getting rid of the patriarchy, of giving up the privilege. They don't, because we often do it for them. Through a collusion, a collusionary relationship that women in the main have with those who oppress us in the institutions that we live in, that we travel through which power is managed, exercised, and performed. And it's that collusion that requires us to think about how power operates, how it affects us, how it transforms us into submissives, into colluders, into sustaining the status quo, maintaining it. And one of my strategies has been to accept that spaces that are hostile to me, I don't go into them. I find the alternative. Because when I acknowledge that I'm going to be stifled, that this space rejects me, you know, like the African women's movement, it drove me out of the African women's movement because they said I was un-African, I was Western, and I was a threat to African culture and to the African family. And I had to step back from the illusion that that was my home and ask myself, okay, Patricia, why are we so naive? Why do we expect nationalists to love us, to accept us? Oh yes, opportunistically, Patricia can do the conceptualization and explain the issue, but we don't want her here, okay? She's too radical. She's too angry. She's too whatever. So stepping back enables me, and we are speaking from where Molara said we should situate our intellectual energies, right? Yes. Speaking from our lives, from the knowledge that is inherently our power. And for me, by leaning back, I'm able to see most of the map, most of the contours of the geography of power and the ways in which it travels and what happens to us as we are disabled by this hegemonic force. And I go to Gramsci and I look for an explanation of why is it that we are polluting. The majority of women in the world are conservative, reactionary, right-wing in many instances, and collusionary with the very systems that oppress us, exploit us, and kill us. Enable those who control them to kill us, to maul us. Why? So as feminists, one of the things I would like to encourage us to do is to return to the radicals of the progressive knowledges that we've inherited as legacies in our struggles for justice. Let's go back. And for me, Gramsci and his notion of hegemony, which is situated within the Italian Communist Party and the struggles of working people, and his incarceration by Mussolini, and the enlightenment, the insight that he has from embracing that moment of incarceration and pain, and then leaving this possibility that feminists could engage with, could interact with. And this is the new kind of deliciousness that I'm bringing into my life, you know, the pleasure. Because I always remind myself that radical feminist thinking is the most pleasurable engagement that you can enter into. It's a gift that it's better than sex, it's better than food, you know, it's better than everything. You know, it is like the ultimate orgasm, okay? So when we engage radically as intellectuals, we dip into the fountain of the most erotic capacities and capabilities that we have, that we arrive with as humans. So for me, understanding collusion, understanding the negotiated settlements that women make with heteronormativity, with patriarchy all the time, understanding why women who are radical, thinking about themselves in freedom ways, speaking freedom, telling their truths at university, become wives, quiet, timid and tamed. And they go back to feudalism to become real women, real African women. Why? Why is it that this hegemon has so much power over us to silence us, our beautiful voices? And my generation, we were talking about gender and development, women and development, but your generation, you have all this amazing legacy. You can actually live lives of freedom and joy because you already have the capacity, the abilities, because all of us are traveling along a path that is wrought through the struggles of women who came before us, who are now, and who will come in the future. So this is one issue for me that I think I would like us to talk about. How do we translate the pain, the anger, this sense that we are trapped, okay? That we keep on falling into the silencing, into the most powerful movement that humans have ever invented. Because that's the only way we're going to make the shift and create the future. And the other thing I would like to talk about is the function of nationalism. Those of you who may have kind of come across me in your lives, I have a pet project. I despise nationalists. I think they're the most vile of all the political creatures. Yes, because they have spun a web. They've created a myth. There's an ancestor who wants to have a drink here. So I'm just going to let her drink. And I hope that it doesn't cause any electrical shorting. I didn't actually libate when I came into this space, but yes, I thank you. All the people who used to live in this place before it was cemented over and before we walked on top of their graves. Ashe. So the other serious challenge is that of nationalism and nationalists. They are dangerous. They have spun myths, miasmas, and they've convinced us that there is no alternative to nationalism. And we have to do the work to think deeply and critically about the ways in which nationalism defines our identities as women, as citizens, as humans, as Africans, and how our feminism, as African feminism, when we say African feminism, what do we mean? We're actually speaking from an epistemology of nationalism. Most of the time, what is called African feminism is actually a gendering of nationalism. I come from that too. I come from there. And it's like being locked in an invisible cage, as Marilyn Fry would say, where you don't see the bars, but you can't leave. Conceptually, intellectually, spiritually, you're locked in, So how do we do that? How do we move beyond nationalism and understand that it has actually redefined and impacted on our politics in such fundamental ways that often when we say feminism, we fall quickly into the trap of if it doesn't travel in a negotiated way with nationalism, it's Western. It's the other feminism. It's, colonial feminism. Yes, absolutely, there is that history. And it's a history that we need to understand, that we need to engage with. But what do we mean when we say African feminism? And how do we disembed it from this very oppressive, dominant nationalist ideology that has marked us in such deep ways? And so therefore, these are the two critical issues that I would like. The paper will be available later. It says many, many more things. Like, for example, what the hell is GBV? What is it? This technocratic term that has no conceptual substance, that has eclipsed our feminist language, through which we were speaking about our pain and our dreams. Even the mild domestic violence notion has been completely swept aside. Let alone bodily integrity. I mean, you don't hear it. And the big voice of the UN and of those nationalist women in the state who are insisting that they speak for us. They've appropriated all the moments that women created from International Women's Day. Most women don't know that International Women's Day is actually initially a celebration of the lives of women who were sweatshop workers in New York. Most women don't know that. International Women's Day morphed into International Women's Day from a feminist protest against sweatshops in New York over 100 years ago. So the ways in which our language, our spaces, our opportunities, our agencies are appropriated by the state in the neo-colonial moment are very crucial for us to interrogate and to critique. And nationalism doesn't encourage us to critique. Don't critique anything. Just kind of, move along. Come on, Patricia. You're an older woman now. How long are you going to be angry for? Why can't you just, calm down. Make some money. Look after yourself in your old age. I'm like this raging feminist who's never going to be old, okay? And I aim to live to 100, by the way. Actually, I was thinking, I heard some really disturbing information. My sister we were traveling in the bus this morning together. She was teaching me about how to speak about the ecological destruction, not to call it climate change. That it is a corporatized project of ecological destruction, brute to destroy the planet for all the shiny things that are supposedly more important than life itself. And I was thinking, I want to live to 100 plus, 120 if I can get there. And then I'm thinking, but by that time there'll be no water to drink, so I have to make a contingency plan to have some water. But I'm serious. We're laughing because it seems so far away, but it's real. It's real. Okay? We no longer laugh. We no longer keep quiet when they kill us. We use the language of femicide and of misogyny, but we don't yet have the language that will embolden us to challenge the destruction of our planet and to protect it and to fight back. We have to create that language quickly, because the corporates, they don't rest. Their hunger is insatiable. I mean, you have a president who's a billionaire. What an obscenity that is. Obscenity. I mean, look at the obscenity of a man who's born outside the systems of apartheid, excluded for being a black human in this country of black people, who becomes a trade unionist. I mean, there's another obscenity, and if you look at his trajectory, and then in the end, now in this moment, he's a billionaire. I mean, how obscene is that? And people are saying to him, stop the war on women. I mean, you're asking the turtle to fly. It's impossible. That is why we have to find the new ways of engaging the state, understanding the state. Let's go back to the legacies of radical left thinking. Let's find the explanations that were offered by those who came before us, who loved justice, who fought for justice, who lost their lives fighting for justice and freedoms. And then we'll be able to free ourselves from the invisible cages of neocolonialism and of the myths that nationalism has spun around us, making us believe that they can actually deliver the dispensation of freedom for us. Okay? So I want to end with just a small appeal. I know the time is over now. I've tried. I'm not very good with time. I'm always longing for more time. I think we all do, don't we? Especially when we find the beauty in us, and that we just want to be there. And time becomes this scarce resource. So I'm going to read this. So as we embrace the pain of loss and tragedy, as women have done for millennia, each time one of us has been slain by the hatred of patriarchal supremacists. Let me start. So, as we embrace the pain of loss and tragedy, as women have done for millennia, each time one of us has been slain by the hatred of patriarchal supremacists, let us open our beautiful, brave, and angry hearts and direct our love to all the sisters we have lost, and bring them home to our feminist sisterhood, and keep them safe and hold them close in the knowledge that we vow to face the truth of what it is that has taken their lives, and that we will fight back and restore their dignity and integrity within the human community. It is the least and the most we have to do in order to turn the tide against the brutality and impunity that is rampaging across all our lives. No more compromises with patriarchal supremacy and arrogance. No more collusion with practices and systems that brutalize us and deny us our humanity. We have to be the radical women that we are, that we can be, in word and in deed, in our private and public lives. We have to be fierce and proud of our rage, and we have to be brave and say no to each and every transgression of our dignity, our integrity, our bodies, our creativity, and our pride as female humans. This is the only way that we'll be able to stop the carnage. No platitudes by politicians and opportunists will stop the war against us. We have to stop it by understanding its source and then by looking for the new ways to resist it and eventually banish it from human society. Thank you.
When I was talking to Patricia earlier, we were just quickly up here talking about Uyinene, and I said, I'm stone cold. And she said to me, you can't be stone cold. And listening to her now, it's almost as if, something has resetted me. And I'm a bit emotional. And I feel like a computer that is about to shut down and it's at 0% and everything is just readjusting and you can't shut it down. Because she said a lot of things, but one thing that she said is like, we've got to go back to basics. We've got to go back to basics. We cannot negotiate anymore with patriarchy. We have to be brave. We have to be angry, we have to be radical. We have to invent our own forms of power. Because feminist work is serious work. And for me, this is what she's reminded me of today. I don't have much to say. I think all of you need to just soak in what she has to say, as she said. Thank you so much, Patricia, for bringing us back to the basics of what it is that we're doing in this work. and how we think through things that we're thinking through, of theorizing as the theme of the conferences, from our agency, from where we are today, here, in this space, and at this time. Thank you so much.